welcome to another live recording of the Business Travel 360 Linking the Travel Industry podcast, where we discuss travel industry news you're talking about on LinkedIn. My name is Rian, and I'm one of your hosts today. I'm a co-founder at Agentivity, where we do some very clever things with the booking data flowing through a TMC. So if that sounds of interest, or you just want to talk to someone with some experience in travel data, please get in touch. As usual, I'm joined by Ash and Anne to help me discuss our list of stories with you. Over to you, Anne.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Anne. I'm an independent consultant with LeapShift. I'm happy to help you with anything related to distribution, retailing, NDC, one order, you name it. Over to you, Ash.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ash. I'm the host of a weekly business travel podcast called What's Up in Business Travel, where we give you only the important updates in under 15 minutes. Additionally, I'm the Vice President of Client Success at Traxo, and this is Linking the Travel Industry.
So, Ash, we didn't break it to you, but today is a bank holiday weekend in the UK. And every time I say that, you ask me, why do we call it the bank holiday weekend? And I don't know. The bank's closed.
Why do you call it the bank holiday?
Because the bank is closed this day. That's why it's a bank holiday weekend. So for those joining us, despite the bank holiday weekend, thank you so much for giving us your time. The format of our discussion revolves around last week's Most Engaged and talked about travel industry related stories on LinkedIn. And then we discuss them here in more detail. You are more than welcome to comment. We do love that when you do it. We'll bring your comment on screen. And later on, we will also show you that you can dial in. You are familiar with that. You can just scan that QR code in the top right-hand corner and you will be connected to us. Okay, our first story from last week that was interesting for me, Qantas once again in the news, not for the best reasons, but again, they got fined 90 million, I would assume Australian dollars, so that's about 60 odd million US dollars for the illegal dismissal of about 1,800 staff during the pandemic. The fine is not as much as the Transport Workers Union sought in this court case, if you want, and apparently $50 million of that should be paid directly to the Transport Workers Union, with the rest to the staff that was affected. So is this such a big deal, Ash?
I'm kind of torn on this. I mean, of course, I understand it from the worker side, right? Being fired on the spot kind of thing is not really a great experience for anybody. But then as an airline, as a company, you're also trying to figure out how to stay alive. Look, we've been hearing fines from the Australian government right, left, and center on everybody in every way possible. How much money does Qantas really have at the end to pay all these fines? I mean, it's like nonstop fine after fine, whether it's this, whether it's the ACCC. I mean, it's just like nonstop.
But they're probably negotiated, though. That's what I assume. I mean, it's like in the US, so the official fine is X, right?
This is the fine, 90 million Australian dollars. Of course, the union, as Rian mentioned, they wanted 120 million. So this is a little bit less than expected 120.
This is Robert Kieran from Travel Counsellors. But this was an interesting story. This was Robert posting about the frustrations people are having in hotels. There were some very interesting remarks, people obviously commenting on the usual. And if you remember, we had this covered sometime last year. We talked about how hotels would put the finest possible print on those shampoo and conditioner bottles in your shower, right? So there's no way you can read those. We remember that post, we covered that. And Robert was just talking about the fact for him, his most annoying items are things like there's no ironing board in the room or bad coffee. Bad coffee came up a lot. No charging point near the bed and air cons that are impossible to control. And I added to that list, apart from those things, also things like the most complicated light switches you can possibly imagine. You need a real degree to work them out, or shiny bright lights shining in your face. So, Anne, what is your most frustrating point, if not any of those?
So I don't drink much coffee, so I really, that doesn't worry me. But something on that list that really irritates me, of course, is, no charging points.
Ash, what about you and annoying points at a hotel?
I mean, I don't have these issues because I stay at Hyatt hotels, as you know, Rian. So these issues are kind of foreign for me and strange. I don't know why people still deal with some of this stuff. I mean, if you stay at a Hyatt, you don't have these issues. For me, the ironing board piece is a big deal because I'm a big ironer. I like to iron. The thing that gets me is when they have the small ironing boards. You know what I mean? The ones that sit on the bed. Oh my God, that makes me crazy. I need the full-fledged, stand-up.
So is that to flatten out your crumpled up boarding pass?
Actually, my boarding pass never gets crumbled,
yes,
so you know. I treat it very well.
Of course.
But the other thing also about this is the power plugs. I mean, people don't travel with just one device anymore. So the idea that you have one plug, I mean, you need to have at least 3 plugs on each side of the bed
Yes.
to make it reasonable as far as the devices that people have. Yes, I mean, and that's why you need new hotels, new infrastructure, and all that kind of good stuff.
That's what I mean, Ash. That infuriates me when I have to race around the entire room to sort of, charge my different devices.
Yeah.
You crawl under the bed to try to find an additional one.
Don't crawl under the bed anymore, Anne.
No, don't do that.
Place to go.
I comment on that one of the best hotels I've ever stayed at was the Novotel in Dammam in Saudi Arabia. And their secret was that all new staff joining the hotel gets to stay 2 or 3 nights in the hotel, come up with suggestions on how to improve the rooms it's amazing.
That's a great idea, actually. They should experience that one.
Idea. Yes. That's the same as airline people.
Yes.
They should travel as regular passengers on both their own airline and also other airlines.
And they should buy the ticket themselves.
Yes.
In economy, in the middle of the plane, all the way in the back, like center seat. That way they get to really get a feel for it.
Travel Fusion and Wizz Air is teaming up, and the story really says that they're going to target the corporate market. And interestingly enough, this is the first time that Wizz Air has teamed up with a supplier like Travel Fusion. This is very interesting. I'm kind of curious to know more about the API behind it. I guess we don't know too much about this, right, Anne, as usual?
Yeah, I agree. It's very, very interesting. It comes a time when LCCs have to realize that there is a market here. A couple of things about this is that, they're not going to sell ancillaries, etc., that are only available through the website and the app. And this is when I talk about this so often. The ability to take that reservation, right, and to then work with it on the airline app and be able to make additional purchases. And ideally, that should be able to, feed it back through your duty of care, your expenses, your, all the travel management aspects of this. I'm also curious to know a bit more about how they're going to deal with changes and refunds, because that's typically what I think Travel Fusion do not support. Yeah. So lots of questions about this, I must say.
Any comments, Ash?
The main purpose of this, I believe, is to be able to make Wizz Air content available through the OBT channels. And all the OBTs have a Travel Fusion integration already built into place. So there's nothing new to build here, except for the fact that you want to bring in your content. And then as far as the booking process is concerned, it's very vanilla. And so to your point about the additional stuff, there's no additional stuff to buy. It's just very simply you being able to book the flight, you being able to get that booking into the GDS through GK segments, and then it passes through the reporting. So that entire infrastructure has already been pre-built, and airlines like Southwest, who've long been on Travel Fusion, have made this process available. So people have been using this process for a long time. Everybody's familiar with it. And now you're just injecting a new airline, Wizz Air, to service that customer, depending on what OBT. And every OBT, whether it's Concur or Serco or any of the others, they all have access to the Travel Fusion integration.
It's a good move. Let's see what happens there. So I just want to take 2 minutes and turn to the audience to say again, thank you for joining us, especially on the bank holiday weekend in the UK. It's great to hear where you're listening from. So why don't you comment and tell us where you are listening from? We'll get your name on screen, and you'll also get a few comments. Thank you for joining us and giving us your time on a Monday. And again, comment about where you're listening from, and we will get your name on screen, and maybe you'll get a few connection requests. Moving on. The US Department of Transportation has unveiled a new website where you can lodge complaints against airlines. So this is similar to the sort of processes you can follow now in the European Union, lodging complaints, etc. Asha, I want to come to you and ask her, what was the process before then?
I mean, the process is still the same. You can still go online and file complaints. The difference is that we were using 1980s web-based interfaces that were extremely old, had no real use case beyond just taking in the information that people were submitting. So that's what that was. Now they've upgraded it. The reason why it's good is because it sends messages, proactive messages, to the suppliers. So now the supplier gets information immediately. So if it's an airline complaint, the airline will be notified, and the airline may take action immediately to solve that issue.
Martin Ferguson, thank you. I see in the app, interesting what you're saying, listening from Glasgow in Scotland. So thank you for joining in, Martin. And Brian now says, I can hear you. So that's great. And hi to George. We haven't seen George for a long time, George in Athens. So hope you're having a good time. My next story is actually about Delta Airlines and United. They are both facing class action lawsuits after passengers who paid for window seats were placed next to seats where there weren't a window. immediately this brought to mind, and if you remember, there was a to and from on old X with Ryanair where a passenger complained, and then they sent back a screenshot of the tiny little peephole little window that was the emergency exit door thing. And they went, well, what's your problem? There's a window. Yeah, this was brought all under one, lawsuit, and they're facing these charges. So right or wrong, Anne?
I think it's right that they are being sued. If you're delivering this type of service, then of course you have to notify the passenger that they are unable to deliver the service. And you should, ideally, in my book, refund them, ideally to a wallet immediately. Well, your first step was try to sort of fix the problem, incentivize some other passenger on the plane that you can, move around. That's ideally what you should do. And I think we've got the technology to do that today. I think I commented on the post and said, I'm so tired of, services not being delivered that I paid for priority boarding. It's not delivered, right? Or you pay for fast track and there is no fast track. Yeah. And I always deliberately complain about that and ask for my money back.
Only last week we talked about Qantas now telling you you're going to get a cookie on this plane and there's going to be a USB-C charge point. Why aren't they focusing on, oh, by the way, there's no window next to you? Ash, what do you think?
Let me tell you, this is one of the most painful experiences I have when I get on a plane, when that happens to me. And the window is not there because it's missing because of all the reasons they described in the post. It drives me absolutely berserk because I need to see outside. Like I'm one of those people that when I travel, I need to look outside and make sure everything's okay because I'm double checking everything myself as a passenger. But the fact that they said, unlike Alaska and American Airlines has the same issues. I'm not really sure what they're talking about. I mean, they should include American Airlines in this lawsuit because when I book on American Airlines, I don't know through the booking process whether the seat has a window or not, and they don't tell me. This is something that I think is really important for travelers and for those that have anxiety when they travel. I think it's really, really critical for them. For your flying public who actually has flying anxiety, which is a lot of people in this world, it is really, really important that you don't give them this misinformation.
Yeah,
it's approximately 25% of the passengers on the plane that have some sort of anxiety about this. And this is a way, of course, of managing some of that problem.
Moving on, our friends Locomote changed hands once again. If this sounds familiar, Locomote. So the story is about the Webjet Group wiring Locomote for, I believe, an undisclosed sum, but Locomote has a history of being sold and rechanging owners and going back. So it was sold to Travelport in 2016, and then the founders bought them back from Travelport in 2020 during the COVID pandemic, and they've revamped it up and they've resold it now to the Webjet Group. So, good for them. I don't know if you have any comments, Anne.
Just also reflected, I thought, I have seen them in the past, haven't I, in the news? So thank you for clarifying that. Yes.
Yeah. And then a very interesting post for me personally. This was a post done by Elias Gezahen. He works at Ethiopian Airlines. He's an NDC implementation specialist there. He did a post about NDC test case scenarios, which he just laid out as a guide that you should follow and go through and say, I should go through these test cases when I'm implementing NDC. The post got a lot of engagement and a lot of comments. And I'm sure you saw this post, right?
I did indeed. And I also commented on the post, which actually has ended up with having, direct message me. And because, I questioned some of the stuff on this post on saying, why do you need a super PNR? To me, there is no such thing as a super PNR. You need an order, right? And of course, to me, it sort of shows that some of the stuff is really, it's just a replication of what we're doing in the GDS world, just replicating it in the NDC world, right?
Yeah. The medal that goes to the most engaged post goes to Rafat Ali's post. He's from Skift. A lot of us know him in the industry. And he did a post about their role in the travel industry, which is clarifying it. But it was interesting to read what he had to say about a certain company that recently lost a lot of share price. And then that came to them and said, because you wrote about it, we're going to withdraw our advertising. And it's just about the harsh or the difficult position you find yourselves in when you have to report on the news and on facts and people not agreeing with what you report on. And, his post got more than 500 plus engagements and comments and reposts and all that sort of stuff. And it was just a post that resonated well for me as well. So, very interesting post. I'm sure you read that post, right, Anne?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? I mean, it's the same with conferences and what have you. Those who pay get, of course, the most time, etc. I mean, we know that's how it works. And of course, this is how it obviously works in the press world as well. And kudos to him for writing this. What do you do? I mean, who controls the narrative?
Any comments, Ash?
It's not their job to do those kind of things that he points out. And, we all have to put our big boy pants on and just say, hey, this is what life's about.
Yeah, I think the entire industry was backing him there. So, I think those were the stories on my list. That is correct. And you've been traveling down to my native South Africa. You had a great conference there with the team from Asata. And on your way back, you had some interesting experiences on the flight. You want to tell us more about those?
Absolutely, because I reported back to you guys and told you about the guy. I was in business class on a flight, and the guy sitting next to me on my flight, Samuel, was charging a huge power bank. Before takeoff, I said to him, can you actually do that? Do you mind? I feel a bit uncomfortable that you're charging your power bank. And he goes, I'm doing that. And then I was told that there are actually no regulations, but after takeoff, the flight attendant told him not to charge his power bank. Then he hid it in his seat and carried on charging it. He totally ignored many things on that flight. But yeah, it's a bit shocking, the behavior of people, right?
The ignorance, really.
But something also that I want to comment on Turkish was that it obviously works, this new, remind me guys, they have a fine now, don't they, if you get up, during taxiing of the aircraft. And that seems to have some sort of effect. I mean, even to the guy sitting next to me, although he's doing a big hoo-ha about it.
Yeah, this is all connected with the word safety in mind, right? It's all about safety. Yes. Here in the US, we have planes with flaps flying out of the plane as it starts to land. I mean, all sorts of nonsense is occurring. So we have a major, major safety crisis in the industry.
Indeed. So Ash, from your side, any extra stories?
Just mention a couple that I thought were important. One is Alaska Airlines this week announced their new Atmos Rewards program. And besides the name, which I wrote a post about, the name kind of didn't appeal to me too much. Maybe it'll settle in after a while. The way they built the program is really good because what it does is it serves multiple audiences. One, it serves the person that flies long-haul flights on Alaska Airlines. And of course, Alaska is moving towards long-haul with flights announced to Iceland and other places like that. Don't think of Alaska as a U.S. airline anymore. Start to put them in the international category for long-haul flights. So it appeals to those folks. It also appeals to folks that spend money on their credit card. So now Alaska Airlines has a partnership with Bank of America with their new credit card. So if you don't travel a lot, you can still earn points. And then the other one is for short haul flights. Alaska Airlines has built a name on short haul travel. And a lot of people within the Alaska Airlines mileage program actually fly Alaska Airlines short haul with great frequency, and they earn status and miles and points through that process. So they've kept all these three lanes open. And I have not seen any pushback from travelers themselves. So if they're happy, which it sounds like they are, they've addressed all the needs. So this is a great, great move. And I think that this will really help Alaska. I think this is a great one.
Yeah, you know how I feel about that name. There's a T missing at the end of that. So again, I just want to say to the audience, thank you so much for joining us on a Monday. It's so much appreciated. That was the list of stories we had to cover this week. We do this weekly, as Ash will remind you at the end. But to those who commented, thank you so much. Over to you, Anne.
Thanks, everyone, and especially on a bank holiday. And thank you so much for your comments. Over to you, Ash.
And what is that holiday? We'll never know. Thank you all for joining today's live recording of Linking the Travel Industry. We record this podcast live every week on Monday. We ask that you share this event with others that you know. Chances are high that if you enjoyed today's session, those that you know will as well. If you ever miss a show because of time zone or availability, we make the podcast available on businesstravel360.com. This is Linking the Travel Industry, signing off.